Uh, Hello, welcome to chapter 5. This chapter analyzes the strengths and weaknesses of subjective idealism and the socio-economic sciences founded on it to understand the statistical results of chapter 3. Subjective idealism in Western philosophy is the view that regards reason as the chief source and test of knowledge, holding that reality itself has an inherently logical structure. The rationalists assert that a class of truths exists that the intellect can grasp directly. There are, according to the rationalists, certain rational principles, especially in logic and mathematics, and even in ethics and metaphysics, that are so fundamental that to deny it is to fall into contradiction. This is a definition of Encyclopedia Britannica. Subjective idealism defends that some ideas are universal, innate, and others follow logically, mathematically. This had a considerable influence in modernity, away from the relativism of empiricism. Some ideas are universal, unquestionable: mathematics, freedom, equality, rights, justice, non-discrimination, limited government, the rule of law, prosperity for all, security, and religious pluralism. Somehow, rationalism strives to build an ideal perfect world. Subjective idealism limits the skepticism and relativism of empiricism. Some ideas are universal, unquestionable: mathematics, logic. It promotes dialogue and understanding, a positive evolution and growth of ideas, learn from mistakes, creativity beyond empirical knowledge, optimism. It promotes education for all. Subjective idealism promotes higher goals, transcendence, altruism, leadership, the value of human willpower. However, subjective idealism is a limited epistemology because there is no scientific foundation to its theory of innate ideas. Some people may not accept collectivist proposals, while others could take advantage of them. Its innate ideas with no proof or justification may lead to collective actions, sacrificing the person, leading to tyrannies, wars, terrorism, and massive killings. Subjective idealism may deny aspects of reality. People have needs, desires, interests. People are selfish, mean, negative, destructive. Subjective idealist ethics believes that basic moral principles are known a priori. They are self-evident, grounded on reason, independent from experience, disregarding their consequences, the benefits they produce, their usefulness or pleasure. Ethics is a battle for moral perfection, intellectual perfection, normative, voluntarist, no matter what human nature would be. Subjective idealist ethics overcome the skepticism of the empiricist approaches, especially the threat of hedonism. Idealist ethics is rational, valid for every society, non-relativistic, impacted on the morality of duties. Idealist ethics has essential benefits for humanity that are part of modern culture, which became a patrimony of humanity. Human rights and dignity. Justice is a prerequisite for peace. Freedom, equality, non-discrimination, cooperation, the rule of law, prosperity for all, security, and religious pluralism, striving to build an ideal perfect world. Subjective idealist ethics denies reality, ignores human selfish or destructive behaviors, disregards person happiness, enables opportunism, promotes collectivization, totalitarianism, oppression, elimination of personal freedoms in some cases, confrontations, violence and wars. The logical foundation and processing can be impacted by the relativity of different personal experiences, different perceptions, different cultures, different value scale, different religions, different political views, economic interests, business realities and strategies, human needs, psychology. A smart person can outsmart others and convince them of his or her ideas. Norms may generate a minimalist, voluntary, and legalistic ethics, divorced from happiness and reality. This lack of realism can generate norms that can be bypassed if agents do not have values. Some obligations are incompatible, contradictory, cannot collide physically, psychologically, metaphysically, economically, legally. Kant's categorical imperative, I ought never to act except in such a way that I could also will that my maxim should become a universal law, is just one criterion. Many other criteria can be applied, such as common sense, values, the consequences of the actions, the maximization of utility, the maximization of happiness, the four causes of the actions according to Aristotle. Morality is based on feelings, affections, and sentiments, consciousness, relatedness to others. It is organic, considers all dimensions. In response to the limitations of free markets political economy, the subjective idealist political economy relies on the role of the state. Kant's categorical imperative leads to human rights. An international order can reach perpetual peace. Republican government, international organization, human rights, universal rights. For Hegel, the consciousness of each person articulates with the consciousness of others through reason on rights, laws, institutions, economics, politics, family. The role of the state becomes central. It reflects the national spirit of the universal mind. Altogether, the spirit of the world. Historicism involves a process of the spirit towards its full freedom. The consciousness of each person articulates with the consciousness of others through reason on rights, laws, institutions, economics, politics, family. Hegel defends that universal norms are developed historically by reason, in which the state controls all public activity with full sovereignty. People must follow the laws and advice of government officials. The state became central in modern political system. Modern democratic institutions, the rule of law, agreement on some universal rights, non-discrimination, international organizations, economic integration promote prosperity for all, cooperation, freedom, peace, and stability. Socialism promotes a fairer distribution of wealth, promoting cooperation and equality. A stronger community orientation may soften the negative side of the radical individualism. However, it may generate collectivism, loss of freedom, leadership corruption, oligarchies, government inefficiency, inefficient economy, lack of pricing mechanism, low income, lack of incentives to promote efficiency, lack of entrepreneurship, tolerance for underperformance, disregard for the consumer, workers, low motivation. According to the Encyclopedia of Corporate Social Responsibility, normative corporate responsibility holds that corporate actors have a general responsibility to provide the means for human subsistence and to foster a human quality of life. This more general requirement also implies that corporations need to legitimize their actions before a wider set of stakeholders, including shareholders and others such as clients, suppliers, as well as the general public. One way to ensure this approach is by external controls, government regulations, laws, and public policy. Normative CSR, corporate governance, focuses on mechanisms to control, to provide transparency, produce economic alignment between principals and agents, defending shareholder rights, stating financial liability on officers, providing power to auditors, promoting social auditing and accountability. It may lead firms to act ethically, generate a strong signal throughout the organization that specific actions will not be approved, setting clear boundaries, promoting control, transparency, ethically clear limits, community-oriented behaviors. Its effects may be limited. Controls may be too liberal or too restrictive. Norms may be disconnected from the reality, may not incentive wealth creation, may harm the firm or other stakeholders, may trigger opportunistic behavior, blocking or distorting the results of the initiatives. Their implementation can be bypassed. They cannot solve some central problems: the pervasive need to maximize the economic value that leads to abusive of market power, natural and human resources, as well as financial speculation, which cannot be easily controlled by a norm. By now, you can make your own judgment whether the strengths and weaknesses of subjective idealism and its impact on socio-economic sciences can explain the social reactions to modern strategic management that we discussed in Chapter 1 and the statistical results of Chapter 3. Let's continue with the debate about whether the state can provide free medical coverage of the entire population that you remember discussed in Chapter 4. But now you are a subjective idealist, a collectivist. You will defend universal human rights. Health is a human right, so the entire society must care about the health of every single citizen. However, is the reality as perfect as the ideas propose? Is the welfare state the best solution for society? You may enjoy watching a debate about Sweden, the paradise welfare state. Spend a few minutes and watch these two videos. In both, Henrik Jonsson discusses the truth about Swedish socialism, debunking the lies of the left. It's interesting. You can read again the conclusions of the chapter and debate whether you agree that the real responsible for the limitations of the welfare state can be found on subjective idealism before it proposes a utopia which has good and bad consequences. Look at the collapses of utopias like the Soviet Union, Cuba, Venezuela, or countries that have stagnated for decades like Argentina due to socialism. These insights are very important as you experience yourself how subjective idealism has made extraordinary contributions to humanity that today are world heritage. However, it may lead to collectivist utopias which can produce a lot of harm to society. Thank you.